Hey, Dr. Robocoach fans. I was looking for the best 2024 fantasy football cheat sheets, and I came across this interesting video from DraftSharks about what is the best draft slot. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I wrote an article about this about 20 years ago, and it's good to see DraftSharks picking that up. I'm sure they didn't copy me. That's not to say anything like that, but um, but yeah, I did cover this once before, and here's my article. But first, I want you to hear what DraftSharks had to say.
Basically, we run through simulated drafts, basically mock drafts from every draft position and calculate the expected value you could plan to gain at each draft spot. So we go 6 rounds for this. ADP just varies more as you get deeper into the draft. So I think draft position really matters less once you get much beyond round 6. So we go 6 rounds. We calculate the expected value of each draft position with our 3D values. We don't want to use raw fantasy points for this because if you did that, basically whichever draft position landed, say a quarterback, would end up, being the best draft spot because they score the most raw fantasy points. But we know that's not the case. We need a better measure to, kind of compare players across positions. That measure is our 3D values. These take our detailed player projections. They apply them to the specific scoring system we're looking at. They factor in player ceiling and floors. And then they also, kind of weigh player value, again, across positions based on league size, based on rosters, based on starting requirements. And those 3D values, they range from 100 to 0 to kind of give us a way to compare players across positions. And that's how we compute, which of these draft positions is best. The draft position that compiles the most 3D value points through 6 rounds is, kind of your best bet.
Well, if you listen to that, then you probably think you need to be some sort of genius or you need some ChatGPT like software in order to figure out what is the draft slot. And that is just not the case. It doesn't take any math skills beyond being able to add and subtract a couple of numbers. It's really quite easy. The first, one of the things that they said was definitely correct, and then that as you go on later in the rounds, you can't make up ground that was lost. And that's what you see here in this article is basically the best draft slot is going to be figured out by the second round. So if somebody gets a jump on you with a good pick, then you've got to make up on that person the ground in that round and the second round. Because once you get beyond, the second round, you get into the third and fourth round, then your ability to make up ground is almost nil. So it doesn't really take a lot of simulations down to 6th round. You can figure it all out just by looking at the first 2 rounds. And so let's do that. So here's a league that I ran. It's a half-point PPR. I think there's 10 teams. The important thing here is that your league's going to be different from this league. It's going to be different than the leagues that DraftSharks ran simulations for. So the point is that the simulation that everybody's going to look at is of no use to you. It's going to be for a different league for sure, because there's just an infinite number of ways that you can score. Or you can set up scoring in fantasy football. So you want a personalized cheat sheet like this one with a personalized ADP. So if you're in a half-point PPR, you want a half-point ADP. If you're in a standard league, you want a standard league ADP, etc. That much is true, and I think DraftSharks mentioned that you do want to run these. They ran their simulations with a bunch of different types of scoring setups. And of course, you would have to then run it for all sorts of league setups. You just can't do that. It's just be an infinite number of possibilities. So you get your own customized cheat sheet here at Robocoach, FantasyFootballDraft.com. The first thing you want to do, it's real simple. You're going to take a look at the tiers. So what's a tier? This is a tier. This black line, it's real simple. So this is saying that Jalen Hurts is in a tier all by himself in this particular league. It's not that big of a tier, 362 to 345, 15 points. So that's where the math comes in. You don't need a computer science degree. You can subtract 360 minus 345. You're like, it's 15. Good math. All right, so that means that if I get Jalen Hurts, I have a 15-point lead over the rest of the league. That's not much. Let's see if I can get a gain over somebody somewhere else. Ooh, Christian McCaffrey, look at that. 450 versus 394. So we're basically talking 55 points there. If I get McCaffrey, I start with a 55-point lead on the rest of the league. How is somebody going to make up that? That's a lot. They're not going to make it up with getting a good quarterback because, like we talked about, that's only going to get you 15 points over the rest of the league. So I'm not worried about somebody picking up Jalen Hurts because I've already got a 50-point lead. And if I have to drop down to the next quarterback or something like that, 15 points, I'm still way out. Now, this is interesting because we got we got 5 wide receivers in the first tier. And there's another, there it is, 55-point teardrop. So somebody, if I have McCaffrey, can make up ground on me here. If I get McCaffrey and I'm forced to take somebody in the second tier, I gained 50 points and then I lost 50 points. So somebody could catch up on me here. So if I don't get McCaffrey, then I might be able to also get 2 of these wide receivers in the first tier with like my first pick. And since this is a 10-team league, I might be able to get this guy right here with my second pick, Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, and bam, I just caught up to the McCaffrey owner. The McCaffrey owner has to pick up this guy. So that is doable. So I can catch up to the McCaffrey owner if I get CeeDee Lamb. Or if I might even be able to get Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown. So this is very doable. I can get 2 of the wide receivers from the first tier. I can catch up to the McCaffrey owner. But if I'm the McCaffrey owner, I can also get these guys because in a 10-team league on the wrap, I'll have the 20th pick. So these 2 players are going to be there. And if I'm smart and I got a cheat sheet like this that shows me, hey, these guys are sleepers, then I can keep my lead. If I'm McCaffrey and I pick up A.J. Brown, bam, I still have a 50-point lead on the league because I wasn't forced in the second tier. And you might be thinking, well, maybe there's some other position where I can make up. No, it's not going to happen. Not in this league. If you take a look at the tiers, yeah, it's another 15-point about tier. I don't, and if I make up 15 points in the 3rd round, in the 4th round, in the 5th round each time, then I'd have 45 points. And that wouldn't make up that 50-point gain that somebody got on me. But I'm not going to get 15 points because these are not going to be available to me. I'm not going to be able to get some of these players in those later rounds. What I will get are players who have much smaller tiers. So this is a 10-point tier, and it'll drop down. It'll be like a 5-point tier. So by the time you get down to the 4th round, the ability to make up ground is diminished. You basically, like I said, you're going to have to do it in the 1st and the 2nd round picks. Defenses, yeah, you're not going to be able to make 10-point tier, 10-point tier. That's not going to cut it. And then kickers are a dime a dozen. That's not going to get it done. And that's basically what's described here. It's called the master power slot. But basically, the master power slot is going to be the person this year is going to be the person who gets McCaffrey because McCaffrey is in a league by his own. It's a 50-point teardrop to the next player down. And so whoever gets that player, the other teams in the league are just playing catch up. And there are ways that you can try and catch up to them. And I talked about that, getting 2 wide receivers in the top tier. If you can pull it off, you'll catch up to that McCaffrey owner, but they'll get the chance to get one of those players too. So it's going to be very hard. This year, the best draft position is Christian McCaffrey, the number 1 slot. And that's pretty much the deal in this league. It might be a little different in your league where the scoring rules are different. So McCaffrey may not have that big of a teardrop. So things might be different there. But in this league, it's looking like I got to get the number 1 draft slot, or I got to be really smart in the later rounds. So good luck in your draft, and go Robocoach. Do all the things.